I feel like you just already told us the sermon. This is good, and we're already like mind blown moments. Okay, Pentecost was last week. Now the narrative lectionary. Reverend Thorne, what is the narrative lectionary doing? We have lost the narrative. What's happening? Give me the like narrative lectionary summer overview slash what's happening this
Cool.
Sunday at Riverside.
So I don't know if I can give you the whole overview, but I know for the next 4 weeks, the narrative lectionary is focused on the revolutionary prayer of Jesus, the Lord's Prayer. And we all might be thinking, and I did the first time I cycled through, what could I possibly say about the Lord's Prayer for 4 straight Sundays? But when you set yourself that exercise, there's actually a lot in there. So I'm preaching on just probably the first two words, Our
Mm,
Father, and
mm.
what that means for humanity to share a parent, to be siblings, to be family, to be in community together. That's really radical.
Yeah.
That's really expansive to think about who all is in the family, the folks that you want, the folks that you don't want, the people you love, but your enemies too. Um, so that's where I'm going, and that's where I'm starting, and then we'll see what other folks do with it.
I feel like you just already told us the sermon. This is good, and we're already like mind blown moments. But yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we are Luke chapter 11 is where the narrative lectionary is prompting us. Obviously, this revolutionary prayer of Jesus, more commonly known as the Lord's Prayer, is found in other places as well in the Gospels. But the Luke one is what we are invited to have for 4 weeks in a row. Now, confession, we're probably not going to do it for all 4 weeks at Riverside, mainly because we have some guests coming into some of those spots. But for sure, this Sunday and then 2 weeks from now, it will have a very clear focus on this passage with Reverend Thorne and then Reverend James Zeno preaching in a couple of weeks. So you were focusing just on the Our Father. You mean it doesn't say my father? It's not Jesus is my homeboy prayer. This isn't just I get to
No.
identify God in my image. It's I have to be a part of a broadly diverse community that doesn't always look or think or believe or vote like me.
Or even center me, right? So this notion that the prayer is to our communal parent and that everything that follows is a prayer not just for myself and my people and the people who look like me, but even for my enemies or even for the folks who aren't Christian or aren't Jesus followers. To me, that's what makes the prayer so radical and revolutionary. Um, because it doesn't say particularly that it's meant just for the people who are praying it. There's a bigger, more cosmic understanding. At least that's where I go with it.
I like that sense of this who's truly this prayer is not about me. It's praying to this God who is bigger than any me who could ever be saying it. So it does transcend just that sense of boundary that I might want to create in the sand, but suddenly it's the very nature of it being our, and then however you want to define that parental metaphor for God, does put it beyond just my own personal experience or understanding. Yeah. So how do you navigate that second word? You know, you're going to do the first two words, our Father. No, it's on the page. That's what my Bible says. Father, right there. It's in the book. So that means God is a dude, right? That's what we've just decided on this video.
Well, I also say when I'm thinking about this text um, that we have to use the word that helps us to connect with the God of our understanding. And I
Mm,
think in this gospel, that word for Jesus is Father. But folks may have challenging relationships with their father. So I think you've got to use the word that works for you. So for some
yeah.
people, it might be mother, it might be parent. But if you had conflicted relationships with your parents, you might have to image a coach or a teacher or some other figure who feels like home to you. So that's the
Yeah.
encouragement that I suggest. Jesus used
Which
the
I,
word that worked for him.
yeah. And the word that even his culture gave to him. You know, he was
Oh, that his
just
culture gave to him. Hmm.
because so I feel like people often will look at this and be like, "See, it says father, therefore God is a father, God is a male. That's just what the Bible tells me." It's like, no, 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 no. It's not describing God. It's describing the culture that speaks about God or the individual. And I think we need that flexibility and fluidity in language for it to really service, because all language is a metaphor anyway.
All
It's all
language is
fingers
a
pointing at the moon, and so if we need a better metaphor to be more connecting and deepening for an individual, then yeah, by all means, change the word so we can get closer to God as a result.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think whatever helps us to crawl inside and feel safe and held and loved. I mean, that's what I think Jesus is doing when he names God as Father. He's naming the person that he's in relationship with, the person that is, I say this in the sermon, the peanut butter to his jam, the cream to his coffee, whatever is the connective tissue, the glue for how you understand your relationship with the holy, use that word. Don't get hung up in the gendered language. Change it. If you want to say Father, Mother, if you want to say Holy One, just recognize that the figure is for you and it's for me and it's for all of the people.
I like that a lot. That's really gives a lot of openness for someone to explore that and hold that. Now, I think the other thing that, the sermon you're going to be preaching, and just this, for anyone who's doing narrative lectionary, the 4 weeks of focusing on this particular thing, I think there's a unique power in it, or weight in it, because most churches, chances are, say this prayer probably most Sundays. But how often are you actually thinking about the words you're saying? It's one of those things where you just kind of, go through the motions, brush your teeth, spit, you just do it all because you do it all. You don't actually, you're not present with what you're doing. And I feel like a sermon series like this just is an invitation to pause on that thing we
Mm.
typically are on autopilot through, to give us just a different presence with that experience.
Right. And I would say no shame and no blame if you're that person. I'm that person. I mean,
Oh,
I've
I'm going
been
to say
receiving.
clergy are often
Yeah.
mostly that person.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I grew up Catholic and we recited the rosary like at least weekly. And so Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou amongst women, and Our Father who art in heaven, you're just getting the words out. You're just getting from bead to bead to bead and not at all mindful of what you are saying. And so it's a really powerful and I think positive thing to reflect on this prayer that we say every week, but don't give a whole lot of our attention to. I mean, and we'll dig in, and I may touch on some other little places because I'm also very interested in this notion of daily bread and what that says about the Old Testament story of manna. That bread is daily, that bread isn't stored, that bread isn't hoarded for the future, and that we have a trust in our Father or in our provider to give us what is needed for the daily need. That is a very humbling and sort of like leaning into um, type of faith, to believe that I don't have to prepare for a future, that I don't have to worry about my bodily needs. And of course, Jesus says that too, not to worry about what we will eat or where we will sleep or what we will wear. Um, and so this invitation to, do we live like that? Probably not. I've got, more clothes in my closet than I have probably worn in the last year. And many of us have probably that same sort of thing in some area of our lives that is in contrast to this prayer that says daily bread. You will be taken care of. God will provide for your needs.
Well, that's a whole other sermon, I feel. So anyone, feel free to borrow that one. And when do we get to hear that sermon? Is that one going to sneak in this Sunday, or is that, the back pocket Lord's Prayer
I
sermon you got?
may just hit some other places in the prayer that I think are
Yeah.
revolutionary. The notion of debts, the notion or trespasses, or what is the other one? Sins. Um, I
Which are
really
all
like,
different metaphors, which is
which are
interesting
all
too.
different metaphors. Absolutely. I really like trespasses. I mean, partly because it's the prayer that I grew up with as a Catholic. We say trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Yep.
But there's something about boundary breaking and crossing into space and into property that I think it's more the space and the crossing of lines that resonates with me. Debts, I think, resonates with some people. This notion of what is owed being paid back or what is owed being forgiven, and that really resonates. And I always say, and we do this at Riverside, pray the prayer in the way that feels life giving to you. So debt, sin, trespasses, we say it all at Riverside, and I pause when I'm leading so that the trespasses people who, that takes more time than debts or sin, so that we all have time to catch up and get to the
Yep,
same
yep.
place in the end. But there's so much value in the various words. It's a short prayer, but it really packs a lot in it, and it really is
Yeah,
revolutionary when you think that it's a communal prayer for all.
yeah. Well, that is a good little teaser and sampler of what's to come this Sunday, and at least a couple Sundays after this, when Reverend Jabe is in the pulpit. And if anyone's preaching narrative lectionary, you've got a whole lot of good ideas to run with from this conversation. So please, use them in your context and make them your own. And for everyone who's just enjoying this conversation, we hope you can join us on Sunday to hear what this turns into from the pulpit. As always, you can join us before worship for open Bible study, where we talk about this passage a little more closely and look at the context in all sorts of ways there. Virtual coffee hour after worship online lets us connect with one another, and we typically will talk with the preacher. We'll get to chat with you more about all this good stuff as well. So lots of ways to take what we just chatted about not only into the pulpit, but into our lives and our world in so many ways. So please do that, because really, come on, the Bible's not something that just exists, in a book or in a sermon, but it's supposed to kind of keep resonating in our world and in our lives. That's the hope, at least. So let's do it. How about this in the comments? So you're got to just put in there today, and then you get to choose. Fill in the blank. Our father, our mother, our parent, our caregiver, our God. Let's see what kind of resonates you have. And it's also our little code of, we know you are with us to the end. We know who you are. You know who you are. But let's let everyone know who you are. So we'll be back with more in the upcoming weeks. Until then, we will see you in all the places we see you, and have a wonderful week.